60s band, the Mamas and the Papas. As a troubled teen star, Mackenzie made several visits to rehab before finally getting sober. Her struggles with addiction have been well documented in her best-selling memoir, High on Arrival, and in the media. She now wishes to use her past experience to help others and offer hope to individuals who are struggling with substance abuse and addiction. She's now working for the Pasadena Recovery Center as their recovery and treatment advocate, running groups on a weekly basis. Please help me welcome Mackenzie Phillips.
Hi, wow, there's a lot of you. Hi, everybody, my name is Mac. Everybody calls me Mac. Hi, yeah, I'm an addict and an alcoholic, or a person with a substance use disorder, however you want to put it. I brought water up here with me, but I don't want to drop it, so I'm going to put it down here. Hi, I'm going to set my timer so that I don't, like, drive you guys crazy by talking for too long. But, you know, did you feel, can you feel the passion, the commitment, the humility of the people that shared this stage today? That is some powerful stuff. I was moved. I was deeply moved, as I am deeply moved by the turnout for this event tonight. And I want to point something out that I don't think, you know, I'm not up here to like go rah rah sis boom ba, but at the same time, I'm sitting at the table and we're looking at their statistics at CADA. And do you see this? 88% of their budget goes to client care and 12% goes to overhead costs. Since that bio was written, the bio that was read about me, I've become a counselor. And I went back to school like a good girl and became a counselor at Pasadena Recovery Center. And so I spent a lot of time with other professionals in the field of addiction treatment, and I can tell you that almost every treatment center I've ever come in contact with does not spend 88% of their budget on client care. I just want to put that out there. That's pretty impressive. I mean, that blows me away. Anyway, hi. Hello, everybody. The dinner was good, wasn't it? I like the grits with the roasted red pepper sauce. That was pretty yummy. I just need to take a moment to thank my friends at New Beginnings Adolescent Recovery Center in Opelousas, Louisiana, for the sponsorship of me coming here tonight. I'm very grateful to be here amongst my brothers and sisters in recovery and those of us who support people in recovery. Because I come from a long line of addicts and alcoholics. If you believe in the genetic predisposition, which I firmly do, you know, then what makes this make sense? Look at the history. You know, if in fact we are here today by way of everywhere we've been, it makes sense. So CADA has been in existence since 1958. I was born in '59. We are family members. And you know, it was a really interesting upbringing, to say the least. I mean, my mother worked at the Pentagon, and she was McNamara's personal secretary at the Pentagon. Go figure, right? And my dad was like, you know, the bad boy. Certainly not the kind of guy that you would want your daughter to get involved with, according to my very, very proper grandmother. Right? So she sent my mother away to finishing school in England. It was actually called the Club of the Three Wise Monkeys, I'm told. And my entire life I've collected depictions of the Three Wise Monkeys, probably, obviously, because of that. But when my mother came back from England, she immediately jumped back into the arms of John Phillips. So, you know, she was in love, right? And she got pregnant, and then they got married. They were pregnant with my brother Jeffrey. And my dad was so complicated and so strange and so tortured. Do I think that when I was born, he held me in his arms and said, I know what I'll do. I'll teach her to shoot cocaine when she's 16. I will groom her so that I can incest her throughout her life by drugging her and having sex with her. I'm sorry, I know this isn't dinner conversation, but I'm a truth teller. And so therefore, I am going to tell you the truth. I don't think he said that. I don't think he thought that. I don't think he planned that. But that is exactly what he did, you know? And yes, I had free choice and all those things that come into play. But, you know, there are a lot of things at work in the family system of addiction. And a little bit of Stockholm syndrome going on, and, you know, a little bit of just being a child and not knowing what was right and what was wrong. We moved to Los Angeles in 1966. My parents divorced before I was a year old. But my dad had already moved to LA. The Mamas and the Papas were this huge band, you know, top of the charts kind of thing. And so my mother, the very proper sort of, you know which fork to use. You know, we had to work our way from the outside in. And, you know, no white after Labor Day, cross your feet at the ankles, tuck your shirt in, young girl, young lady, you behave. You know, we moved out to California. And the next thing you know, my mom's wearing go-go boots. Right? You know, she had like the matching bag and shoes and, you know, the whole thing. And next thing you know, she's wearing go-go boots and she's got her hairs braided and I can hear sounds like that coming from downstairs. The end is the best part. I'm thinking, something's changing here. Something's changing. Well, it was 1966, right? In Los Angeles. And I was a little girl. And so I lived with my mother, and we still had to sit up straight and tuck the shirt in and no white after Labor Day. But on the weekends, my dad would send a limo, and my brother Jeffrey and I would hop in the back of this cavernous, dark, empty limo and go off to Disneyland, basically. But it was my dad's house. And it was wild. It was very different. And so this duality, this be a proper young lady, and then on the weekends, you know, you're running free and Mick Jagger is sitting in the living room and, you know, you're learning how to roll joints as a 10-year-old. It was a really odd existence, but it was mine. And I didn't know it was odd until I had some distance and some grace away from it to look back and go, wow, I don't think that was everybody's experience. Clearly it wasn't. And, you know, it was... I had my first drink probably before I was 11, but because, you know, my mom would have cocktail parties and my brother and I would go, don't worry, we'll clean up. We'll do that. And we'd go around and pour the drinks into one big cup and drink them down. But I remember my first real blackout. My brother somehow got a hold of a bottle of tequila and he had a 2-liter bottle of root beer. Ooh, yeah, it's bad, right? It's bad. And he said, we're going to cut school. And I was like, it's my big brother. You know, let's cut school. And so we went behind the Muscatels. It was, believe it or not, it was called Muscatels. Anybody old enough to remember that Muscatel was a wine? Right. Well, now it's Michael's, you know, craft stores. And we went behind there, and my brother said, well, you take a big sip of root beer, and then you take a big sip of tequila. And it was kind of gross, but it was good. It was good. This little baby girl felt okay. I blacked out. I threw up in a trash can. I don't remember the rest of the day, but I couldn't wait to do it again. I could not wait to alter my consciousness again, to escape that little body of mine and be able to breathe. So that was my first drunk. And, you know, I was a really smart kid. I was a super smart kid, and I skipped the 2nd grade, and, you know, I think it was probably because my legs were really long and they couldn't fit under the desk in the 1st grade classroom. But my mom always told me, it's because you're brilliant, darling. So I'd go and visit my dad on the weekends, and, you know, I learned that they had really good drugs, like really good drugs, my dad and my stepmom's moms, lots of them over the years. And I remember one weekend stealing some Thai sticks. And I remember coming back the next weekend and my stepmother Genevieve saying, "Oh, here comes the little drug thief." You know, my criminal activities started very young. And it's very difficult as I stand up in front of you telling about this stuff that went on when I was a little girl to reconcile the woman I am today to that person. But I have to stay connected to where I come from in order to remember not to go back. It's really important for me, and it's really important for all of us who are in recovery. You know, it says we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, but we will see how our experience can benefit others. And that is very powerful. I don't live there anymore. I don't live in the sexual abuse. I don't live in the, you know, all the things that I could live in. I don't. I try to be present for the moment that I'm in. And quite often I have to redirect myself back and look down at my feet and go, where am I now? Oh, I'm here in Shreveport, Louisiana, in front of all of you lovely people. And so, you know, although the past has depth, it has meaning, it has a purpose in this present moment, I don't have to live there. I can choose not to live in the problem. I get to choose to live in the solution today. But I can access that experience in order to say, come on, buddy, I know you're tired. Come with me. I know the way. Come on, let's go. You know? It's like I said last night, the only time you should ever look down on anybody, and of course this isn't my phrase, is when you're helping them up, right? So I'll get to the stuff. You guys want to hear like one day at a time stories and all the crazy stuff and all the fun stuff, right? I'm sure. You know, but within all of that fun stuff and all of that public image and all of that insanity of the money and the fame and all that kind of stuff, there was a broken little 11-year-old who had just had her first drink. And I carried that broken little 11-year-old with me for many, many, many years. And I led with my wound. I led with my wound. Oh, you want to know what happened to me? Oh, wow. You ready for a story? And now I can look at it and go, yeah, this is something that I can use as a tool to guide others, you know, to help myself and help other people. So there I was, you know, going to this like hippie school. We went to a hippie school. It was like peace, love, and brown rice kind of thing where we learned how to knit and make stained glass. And it was a Waldorf school. Anybody familiar with Steiner education? Okay, I'm a Waldorf kid, and my son is a Waldorf kid. And, you know, we made candles out of beeswax, and we made our own school books, and it was really cool. I mean, it was a really, it was like a Renaissance education, but of course it came with all of, you know, the things that are required by the Education Board of the state of California, but it was peppered in with all kinds of interesting, fun stuff to do. And we put together a band, and we wrote, and I was 12 years old, and we wrote a bunch of songs about like eating cold soup and drinking beer in prison, and of course, none of which we had any experience with, but we took it to the Troubadour, which is a very famous club in Los Angeles, on an open mic night, like a hoot night, a Monday night. And I was the lead singer, and we were singing our songs, and a guy comes up to me afterwards, and he says, how'd you like to be in a movie? And it's like, oh my God, that would be like so cool. I'd love to be in a movie. Oh my God, yeah. I was such a Valley girl, you know? And my mother was right behind him going, please don't speak to my daughter. Who are you? Anyway, it turned out the guy was Fred Roos, who later went on to win an Academy Award for The Godfather and so on and so forth. And he was casting a movie called American Graffiti. And I went in and I auditioned against like 300 other girls. And I went home and I forgot about it. I was like, I don't even know what that was. What was I doing? I don't, you know, I'd never acted before. I didn't know what it was. And then about 3 months later, we got the phone call that I had gotten the job. And I was like, what job are you talking about? And so I got the job in American Graffiti, and this is an interesting story. I didn't even know this happened until many, many, many years later, when my son was about 6 or 7, and we went to a screening of American Graffiti, which was shot in 1972, so Yes, it was a very long time ago. We went to the screening of American Graffiti, and the producer, Gary Kurtz, said to me, so do you remember that you arrived in San Francisco to do this movie alone? I said, what do you mean? He said, yeah, you got off the plane and you were just a 12-year-old girl with a suitcase. And apparently they said to me, where's your guardian? And I said, what do you mean? My mom put me on a plane to come make a movie. Apparently I was supposed to have a guardian. And yeah, they had to like scramble around and get like a special work permit, and Gary Kurtz took temporary custody of me, and I lived with his family while we were filming the movie. I had no idea. The mind is a very powerful thing because I have a really good memory, but there are stretches where it's a blank. And you know what? I thank God for some of those stretches. I really, really do. Because the things that I do remember can be difficult enough. So the things that I don't remember, God only knows what they could be, right? I mean, you know, for a lot of us, and this might be a kind of controversial thing to say, but for a lot of us, drugs and alcohol were a survival skill that maybe kept us alive long enough to get sober. Maybe a lot of us were using this as a tool to deal with the trauma. And believe me, trauma is relative. You know, what might be traumatic for me, you could go, oh my God, that's nothing. So it has to do with the individual's physiology, right? But maybe a lot of those of us who used and drank the way we used and drank were using to stay alive. And some of us, the lucky ones, got sober because it stopped working as a survival skill. And the things that it did in order to allow me to feel okay in my body started working against me, right? But a lot of us used and drank for so many years the way we did, and maybe we need to be grateful up to a point because it allowed us to survive. I know in a way it's that for me. You know, medicating trauma with something that causes more trauma isn't necessarily what we would like people to do, but if it keeps them alive long enough to get into my office at Pasadena Recovery Center, and long enough for me to say, your best friend has turned on you. Your survival skill has turned into a death skill. Now, how are we going to get you to a place where you can actually see that, and we can move forward with what's really in store for you? You know, someone did it for me more than several times. 11 times I went to treatment, okay? And, I mean, granted, some of the, like 5 of those were like in a 2-year period. So I could give myself a little out there. But, you know, so I went and I did this movie, American Graffiti, and I didn't know what we were doing. I thought we were maybe doing like an after-school special, maybe. Or like an educational film to put in movies. In schools. I wasn't really sure. I didn't really know. My mom just put me on a plane with a suitcase and said, they want you, go there, do that. And it was really fun. I mean, I was 12. Everybody else was a lot older. Gary Kurtz and his family were Quakers. And so I would go home after shooting all day, and we'd hold hands and sing songs about being friends at the dinner table. And it was, you know, it was odd. Okay, it was a little weird, but it was kind of beautiful too. Because I came from this fragmented, scattered family system. And it felt safe. I didn't know why I was there at the time. I just thought that they'd made arrangements for me to stay with these people. But I'm so grateful for it now because I can look back on it, and I don't remember the trauma of getting off the plane all alone and people going, oh my God, we're gonna have to get somebody else to do this part. I remember feeling safe in the Kurtz home. You know, thank you, God, for that. So we did American Graffiti, and then I went back to, and then I moved in at my dad's house, and it was weird. And there was a 301-foot-long pool that was empty because the house had belonged to Johnny Weissmuller, the guy who played, you know, and he was like an Olympic swimmer, and so they built this 301-foot-long pool for him. The house is still there. If you want to Google it, you can look at pictures. It's at 414 St. Pierre Road in Bel Air, California. Very cool, very strange, but it was like this 301-foot-long pool that was empty, you guys, and it was like 20 feet deep, but it was empty. It was the first skateboard park in Bel Air ever, and it was 1973. And we rode our big wheels in the pool. And my dad had a stash of M80s, which is an eighth of a stick of dynamite, and we'd set those off in the pool, and it was wild, and no one, you know, I knocked on the door, I'm like, Dad, I'm moving in, can you pay for the cab? Because I'd run away from home. And he said, sure. I said, what are the rules? And he said, well, let me think. I was 13. He said, you have to be home one night a week. And if you're going to stay out all night, never come home in the clothes you left in because a lady doesn't wear evening clothes during the day. Okay. All right. Those are the rules. Basically, there were no rules. The kids had one wing of the house, and the adults had the other wing of the house. And frankly, I'm lucky to be alive. And so are my brothers and sisters. I don't know how we survived. Although I believe our coping mechanism, which was drugs and alcohol, might have had something to do with it. And the fact that we are all abstinent today has a great deal to do with the fact that we are productive members of society. There you go. How much time do I have? How much time do I have? Oh, good. Oh, good. So you know, it was kind of a weird, rarefied upbringing. But you know, flash forward, I did a lot of TV things, and I did a lot of, you know, kid actor things, and then, like I'm saying that like at one day at a time I wasn't a kid actor anymore. I was 15. Okay, so yeah, I was a child actor, and you know, one day at a time was a blast. I did it from the age of 15 to the age of 24, getting fired twice in the middle for substance abuse disorder. But I'd walk into work in the morning and I'd be like, oh my God, Valerie Bertinelli and Bonnie Franklin, God rest your soul, Bonnie, I miss you every day, were like the cheeriest, most normal people in the world, and I was other. I felt other. I'd walk in, you know, kind of like late again, and in black leather. Oops, I'm still wearing black leather. You know, and I'm kind of like hiding in a corner and going, oh my God. And finally they're like, what's wrong with this girl? What is wrong with this girl? And they called me into the office, and they said, well, they knew that I had a substance use disorder, but nobody talked about it. They were like, oh, that poor Max, she needs some rest. She needs to go to the dermatologist. She needs to put on a few pounds. Chris O'Shea just choked. You know, right? So they called me into the office, and they said, by this time I was probably 18, maybe 19. They said, we're going to suspend you for a week with pay, and we want you to go get well. And I said, okay, I'll be back. And I walked out, and I went clothes shopping. I went to the dermatologist. I got my teeth cleaned. And I came back a week later, and I went, ta-da! And they went, awesome, you look great. And so nothing had been addressed, obviously. The exterior had been addressed. And I thought that if I thought a couple things. I thought these people are old and they don't understand that I'm just having fun. I'm just living the life. I didn't understand that that wasn't what was happening. And I thought that if I could just get the right chemical cocktail, like just a little bit of cocaine and a few Valium and one glass of wine, I'd be okay. I thought if I, you know, really hedged my bets and just stopped doing so much of that and doing just a little bit more of that, that everything would normalize. I thought that if I got the right boyfriend and drove the right car and had the right haircut, that I'd be okay. I didn't understand that I was living out my genetic through line and that I had been hijacked, my brain had been hijacked by something way more powerful than me, way more powerful than my abilities as an actress, way more powerful than my desire to do well. I'm a nice girl. I've always been a really nice girl, you know? I was a really nice girl with a really severe substance use disorder. And I was 18, and the first time I got sober, I was 32. It takes what it takes. The problem is that most of us die before we realize what the real problem is. I thought I just wanted to be high, and it made things more fun. And it was just, if indeed we're products of our environment, if indeed we are, which I'm not altogether sure of, although it does play a certain role, then that's what I was born to do. You know, that's what I saw, that's what I grew up around. I knew there were sober people in the world, but I was like, yeah, I'm meant to run it out in the dark alone until I die. That is not available to someone like me. Which is like the saddest thing to understand is that our brothers and sisters who are still suffering, they know there are sober people in the world. They know that. But they don't believe they deserve it, or they don't believe they can achieve it, or they don't believe that there's any fun in it. You see, when the brain when the perception is distorted, just by nature of that phrase, a distorted perception, it doesn't know it's distorted because it's distorted. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're dealing with a loved one who is resistant to change and resistant to treatment and resistant to tough love and resistant to all of that, gentle them in, because the perception is so distorted that there is no awareness that the perception is distorted because the perception is distorted. Make sense? Right? Man, I deal with resistant clients every day. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because here we are on the other side of this disorder, at least a day at a time, by the grace of God, however you want to put it. And you just want to be able to take like a flash drive, right? One of those little flash drives, and take some of the joy out of your being, and you want to be able to download it into the person, just like, zzz, I strike you sober. It doesn't work that way. That's why a continuum of care is so important. That's why more than 30 days, if you can swing it, is so important. That's why a sober living environment and an intensive outpatient program and a therapist and a sober link, anything, moving forward with UAs, drug testing is so important because this thing doesn't just disappear. It doesn't just disappear because physical sobriety, dig it. Physical sobriety, okay, you put the plug in the jug, you break the tip off the needle, you crash the meth pipe under your foot. Great, that's all well and fine. That's not the key, because drugs and alcohol are but a symptom of a deeper underlying problem. And it doesn't have to be that you were incested as a child. It doesn't have to be that you were abused and neglected as a child. It doesn't have to be that it could be as simple as the expectations were so high and you felt that you couldn't reach them. That's why I say, it's my boss on the phone. Hi, Mike. That's why I say that, damn, he broke my train of thought, which is what bosses do, isn't it? Just by the nature of the fact that they're your boss. So that's why I say trauma is relative. It doesn't have to be that your house burned down and you had to run back in and save your dog when you were 4. It doesn't have to be that. And it could be just as simple as someone woke the sleeping monster of addiction, that genetic predisposition. It could be as simple as a joint going around the room and going, well, I know Uncle Bob's an addict, but this is only marijuana. I'm gonna take a hit. Take a hit. All of a sudden that monster inside goes, oh, I've been waiting for you, man. And that genetic predisposition wakes up and that MFer is hungry, right? Does anybody here watch Game of Thrones? Okay, so Khaleesi walks into the fire, right? Okay, and she comes out with little baby dragons. They're cute. They are cute. They are like little dragonflies, but they're dragons, right? That's the monster when you first wake it up. You know, fast forward to season 3, they are fire-breathing monsters who will consume anything in their path. That's what we're up against with a substance use disorder, with the distorted perception, with the resistant client. Me and my soapbox are having a blast. But you know, I got fired from One Day at a Time. I got fired. They were like, dude, stop it. You ever see that episode of the Bob Newhart show where he plays the therapist and she's going, I'm afraid that someone's gonna bury me in a box alive, and he goes, well, stop feeling that way, just stop it. That's the therapist, you know, saying, stop it. We can't just tell people to stop it because it's not that simple. This is a complex disease with many, many layers. And that's why I love what they're doing at CADA, because they're really addressing the entire spectrum of how a substance use disorder manifests. It tears families apart. They can have their babies there. They can have their children there with them. I mean, you know, we are starting to make great leaps and bounds in the treatment of substance use disorders, but it's been slow going. And the stigma is so huge that so many of us are hiding behind our, you know, we're hiding with our anonymity. I would like to recover out loud. Now, that doesn't mean I have to tell you how I do it. That doesn't mean I have to break long-standing traditions. But I am a woman in long-term recovery, and I am so proud of that. And I want to put a face on the addict. I want to put a face on the alcoholic, because I'm both. I'm all of it, you know? And so if we continue with our perceptions that this is a moral failing, that why don't you just stop? Why can't you just stop? Well, do some research and look into the brain chemistry of addiction and how it recreates neural pathways that completely override the prefrontal cortex, right? Goes straight to the midbrain. Anyway, I don't want to get too esoteric, but if you really want to know about what's really going on in your addicted family member or loved one who is resistant to change, they're just trying to stay alive. And when your brain gets hijacked by a substance, it becomes survival. It becomes as important as food or water, because the whole reasoning part of the brain is completely, the neural pathways change to the point where that is completely gone over, and it's just straight into survival mode. So I was always like, oh, you know, I feel so bad for Robert Downey Jr. I feel so bad for those people that caught up in the system. That never happened to me. I've been sober 10 years, blah, 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 right? Well, I thought it would be a really great idea to have elective cosmetic surgery right after my 10th year of sobriety. And that entailed Dilaudid. That entailed Xanax. That came along with Thorazine. I don't know why they gave me Thorazine, but whatever. Because I took it all. And the switch was flipped in my brain. And everything just shifted back into, I needed to stay alive. I needed to stay alive. And language is powerful. I was about to say, and the next thing I know, I had a needle in my arm. Remember how powerful language is. It's not the next thing I knew. There was a lot of stuff in between that surgery and how I came to have a needle in my arm. So when you find yourself or you hear people that you love talking about, and then I found myself with a drink in my hand. No, let's break it down. Let's go back and deconstruct that phrase. Because you didn't just find yourself with a drink in your hand. You stopped doing what you needed to do on a daily basis. You know, there are a lot of things that go into play when someone says, well, I don't know what happened. It just happened. It didn't just happen. It didn't just happen. And that's denial, okay? But there I was, there's another phrase, there I was with a needle in my arm. No, that's totally discounting what happened in between. But I don't have time to go into that, maybe another time. And yeah, after 10 years, I let my guard down. I stopped doing what I needed to be doing. I got complacent. I thought, it's been 10 years, I've got this thing. I am fine. I am nothing against the power of opioid medications. And guess what? 100 people are dying in this country every day from the overprescribing of opioid medications. People are relapsing. And then they go out and they're like, well, I'm out already. I might as well shoot some dope. This is what's happening. Our people are dying, okay? I'm lucky I stayed alive. I don't even know how that happened. I believe God had a plan for me, and I was just lucky enough to, there's my timer. I was just lucky enough to stay alive long enough to participate in it, to participate in God's plan for me. So there I was, there I go again, there I was. I was about to travel to New York City for a one-day-at-a-time reunion on The Rachel Ray Show. The drug dealers were living in my son's old bedroom, directly below mine, ensuring a steady stream of heroin and cocaine came right up the steps. Because here's the deal. It's a long story, but a chronic pain condition set in, which I believe I created with my mind in order to justify opioid medication. The doctor got wise and was like, oh, you are not getting any more Opana, fentanyl, morphine sulfate, you name it, I was on it. And I was in agony. Do I look like a person who's in agony now? So that leads me to know that I created those pain conditions in order to justify the prescriptions. So when he said, no more, you're done, the next logical step in my distorted perception, I gotta find some heroin. That's what's happening to our children. That's what's happening to our friends, our aunts, our uncles. Once the doctor says no more OxyContin, it is a short leap. And it's hard to believe, but it really is hard to believe. But it's a short leap from the end of the OxyContin prescription to going out and scoring dope on the street. And I'm telling you, it's happening to soccer moms, it's happening to grandparents, it's happening to children, and it's happening to executives, it's happening to airline pilots. I mean, it's just happening. And those of us who work in treatment and recovery see it every day. We see it every day. We're even seeing geriatric addicts. Grandma falls and breaks a hip on the OxyContin train. Next thing you know, grandma's like, needing more OxyContin. Because you cannot escape the fact that these drugs are addictive. Now, we're kind of in this place where we can't ban these drugs because they serve a purpose. They're not made to treat chronic pain. They are made for end-of-life pain. They are made for the terminal cancer patient. They're made for the person suffering from ALS. They're not made for, oh my God, my back hurts. Oh my God, I just had a tooth pulled. Oh my God, I had my wisdom teeth out. My son went to the ER. I was out of town. He's 29. I mean, he's not an addict. Really weird. Who are you? Who are you? Thank you, God. He went to the emergency room when I was out of town because he had pink eye. He left the emergency room with a little bottle of, you know, that stuff they give you for pink eye, and a prescription for 30 OxyContin for pink eye. Okay? We are dying. We are dying. Tuesday morning, I was on Capitol Hill with a bunch of senators and Dr. Oz. He's awesome. At a congressional hearing. about preparing prescribers, assisting them in understanding that people are dying. My people are dying, and I certainly don't mean celebrities. I mean addicts and alcoholics are dying because of the overprescribing practices in this country. So anyway, soapbox. I was on my way to New York for a Rachel Ray reunion on the One Day at a Time show. It was Rachel Ray's birthday. That was her favorite show growing up. They had reenacted the One Day at a Time set on her set, right? Had a first-class ticket and 3 grams of heroin, 3 grams of cocaine, and 50 syringes. I got arrested. All that time of thinking, oh, poor Robert Downey Jr. got caught up in the system. Yeah, careful about your I've nevers, because they may come true. What does Robert Downey Jr. say? He says, yeah, I don't use drugs and alcohol anymore. Every time I do, I break out in handcuffs. I like that. I think it's funny. Anyway, I was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport for felony possession. It was August 28th, 2008. And yeah, all I could think of was, oh my God, I'm somebody's mother. I'm somebody's mother. I'm almost 50 years old. Where did I go wrong? If addiction is a cancer that needed to be excised, I missed a spot. And I got to go back to the beginning. And I've got to start over. And that's what I did. I am so eternally grateful to the Los Angeles Police Department for stopping me in my tracks, because I literally would not be standing in front of you tonight. God knocks on our consciousness and says, hey, Phillips, wake up. I got a plan for you, but you got to stay alive to participate in it. Wake up, Phillips. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, how about this? Wake up, Phillips. Well, that didn't work. Here's some handcuffs. That wake you up? And woke me up to life, to freedom, to joy, to being a mother to my son, even though he's a grown man. He missed a lot. To going back to school so that I could responsibly be of service to the addict who's still suffering. I've never had a business card in my life till I started working in treatment. I never had an office. I mean, it's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's never too late to find your passion. It is never too late to get sober. As long as there is breath, there is hope. Don't give up. Don't give up on the people you love. Don't give up on yourself. Certainly say, no, you can't be here. No, I won't give you money. No, I will not participate in your destruction. But don't give up. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, CADA, for the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac. Can I call you Mac now that we're family? Thank you so very much for sharing your inspiring story. And thank you even more for fighting on the Hill to make sure that we get those regulations and those policies right, and fighting for our people of America, to make sure that we all stay alive. Thank you. We appreciate you very much. Thank you.